You're listening to the Performance Group Podcast, a place to listen, learn, and get to know the unseen heroes of our local community. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sean Kirby, and on the Performance Group Podcast, we make it our mission to learn from those around us and shed light on our local community. If you're new to the show, we have spoken to business leaders, community organizers, friends, and family. And before we jump in today, I hope to ask you for a favor. If you could please just take 1 second to hit subscribe and share our posts. It would mean a whole lot to me, our team here at the Performance Group, and our amazing guests on today's show. Hello, and welcome to the Performance Group Podcast. And on today's episode is a special episode. This episode is going to be probably a reoccurring episode, and we are going to do what's called the Blue Collar Blueprint. Today, we have probably one of the most influential people in the state of Indiana as a blue collar business owner. We have Paul Schwinghammer. He is the owner of Hallmark Homes Incorporated. He is actually the president of the Indiana Builders Association, the newly appointed president of the Indiana Builders Association. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to sit down and talk to us about not only the Builders Association, but kind of your story and how you got to where you are today.
Sure, glad to be with you.
So I want us to talk a little bit about how long have you been part of the Indiana Builders Association before you got to, now the president of the organization?
Well, actually, when we started the company back in 1992, one of the first things we did was join the Builders Association. And with that, you become a member of not only the local association, in this case, Madison County, but also the Indiana Builders Association and the National Association of Home Builders. So it's a three-tiered membership approach. And so Hallmark Homes and myself have been longstanding members ever since we founded the company. Well, it's 30 years ago this month.
What all have you seen change since 1992 in the building arena?
Well, a house is still a house for the most part. Styles change, features change, people's tastes change. Obviously, the thing we're facing now that we haven't faced in really the whole 30 years of history is the tremendous increase of price with all building materials. Typically, year over year for, let's say, 27, 28 of those years, we would get about a 3% bump in prices, just the normal kind of inflationary pressures that you deal with materials and commodities year after year. But the last couple of years have been literally exponentially higher than that. In some cases, 30% and more per year over the last couple of years. So it's really putting a strain on the building environment as we know it today.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I know is the mission of the Builders Association is to educate and advocate for housing affordability. Obviously, that's been stretched as hard as it can be in the last, 24 months.
Well, it is. Yeah, Indiana Builders Association's primary focus is advocacy for Hoosier consumers. A lot of people have a misconception, think the Builders Association is all about, what can it do for its members, when it's really about what can the members do for Indiana as a whole. Because if homes aren't affordable for Indiana Hoosiers, then we can't build them. And if we can't build them, then our members are out of business. So we work diligently at the State House in trying to stop legislation that does nothing more than increase the cost of housing. As it is and has been over the last number of years, 24% of the cost of a new house is already due to government regulation. So every dollar that we can keep out of the cost of a new house that is really going toward needless regulation, the better it is for the consumer.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I saw you say in I think you were on Wish TV or one of the local news stations. One of the interesting things I thought you said was that everybody talks about the rising cost of lumber, and you said, well, that's only 20% of the cost of a house. So even though it is increased, it's all the other fixtures and things like that that are really running people over.
Well, lumber makes the news because it's a commodity driven entity, just like oil is. I mean, everybody follows oil because it's traded as a commodity. Lumber, dimensional lumber, trades as a commodity. Not all lumber does. Sheet goods, such as OSB and plywood, does not trade on the commodities market, and that the cost of that has risen exponentially. And I keep using that word exponentially because that I don't take that word lightly. It just means it's multiple times the normal expected increase. OSB that was $12 just a couple of years ago for a 4x8 sheet is now over $50. That's just an example. Lumber, or I'm sorry, not lumber, but electrical wire. A 250-foot roll of electrical wire that was $65 is now $152. A garage door, a simple standard 16x7 two-car garage door that less than 2 years ago was $578 is now almost $1,400. So it's multiple products that go into the home, and hundreds of products go into building a new home, and everything is up at least 15 to 30%. And in the case of lumber, it's higher than that.
How much do you think of that was driven by interest rates versus supply chain?
Well, interest rates, not at all, because we haven't even seen the effects of higher interest rates yet. This whole escalation of the Russia-Ukraine situation, they're saying, may tamper down the Federal Reserve's desire to raise interest rates now that we're looking at a potential recession with $127 a barrel oil, gas, at over $4 a gallon. That's going to put a crimp on the everyday consumer. That leads to a slowdown in the economy. The whole Fed's purpose of raising interest rates was to slow down the overheated economy. The problem with the Fed, in my opinion, and some others, is that they did not raise interest rates soon enough. They really should have been raising interest rates 18 months ago, or at least a year ago, to ease down the economy, to tap on the brakes, not slam on the brakes. Now we're getting a pretty good slam on the brakes right now with this war going on. And we think that that's going to have a negative impact on the economy, which may mean that the interest rates won't have to come as steep and as often as what they were initially predicting.
With the supply demand issue let's just talk about realtors, there's just not a lot of houses for sale right now that are even, older homes. How much does that impact the new price of homes and the need to build new homes in central Indiana?
Well, and it's not just central Indiana, it's all portions of the country are facing this supply and demand crunch. The problem with housing is it's not an immediate fix. The time to build a new house takes many months, and now many more months because of the supply chain disruptions on getting the materials either out from the manufacturer, or in the case where they're coming from overseas, off of those ships. So it's been a significant challenge in that regard. But the supply and demand has been the factor that's caused the increase in prices for new and existing homes. When you have too few goods and too many people wanting to purchase them, naturally prices are going to go up.
Yeah, and for some of us younger people that maybe haven't lived through the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows that obviously you have made it through as a home builder, because there's a lot of people that keep comparing this to a bubble burst of 2008. How could you compare or even contrast the two time periods?
Well, it's different because back then it was more of a monetary issue than it was a supply. Then all of a sudden the demand dried up. So it's kind of two different things. The end result may be the same, however. We stopped selling houses literally in 2008 and 2009, 2010. It lingered on really until 2012, 13, till we started turning the corner back to some degree of normalcy. But it really is a different economic environment than it was back then. But again, We sold a lot of houses in 2006 and 2007. 2021 was our highest year for permits in Indiana for single family homes at just over 22,000. That number hadn't been achieved since 2006. But then we got, well under 10,000 in the downturn per annum. And that put a lot of home builders really, quite frankly, out of business, many of which have never returned.
Absolutely. As somebody who did survive those years, not saying things are going to get lean, but things are obviously increasing in cost, and people are going to be more cost conscious cost conscious, right?
Mhm.
What would be your recommendation to local builders or people that are, seeing this for the first time from a survival standpoint?
Well, there's ebbs and flows in any business like home building. I mean, this is not normal. We've had highs, we've had lows, we've had good times, we've had bad times. It's been very good the last 6 or 7, 8 years. I mean, it has been steady in the mid teens, 20 teens, we'll say. 2019, 2020, 2021 were all very, very strong years, record years for my company as well as many other builders. We're not unique, all a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So everybody's done well the last few years, but hopefully everybody's been preparing for, the downturn. So, the ways we do that is we mitigate risk. Our company survived the downturn because we weren't sitting on a bunch of undeveloped lots. We weren't sitting on a bunch of speculative homes that were for sale. We had loans on that we couldn't pay for, and then we couldn't sell, and therefore we got the loans called due. That's what happened to a lot of builders. So it's kind of, since we're sort of risk averse, at least with our business model, we were able to sustain those downturns, and I believe will again. We have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball as to know how long this is going to last, but I know $130 a barrel oil is not sustainable to a good, healthy economy because it affects so many things. Transportation costs of materials themselves, roof shingles, vinyl siding, PVC pipe, lots of things are manufactured out of oil base. All of those things are going to go up even higher than they already have because we're seeing oil at double the level it was just a few months ago.
That being said, you're expecting, well, I think we're all expecting another rise in good costs. They're already up 30% in the last couple of years. Are we thinking another double, triple? I mean, at this point, don't
Again,
know.
The thing that's going to tamper down prices is a slow in demand. What's going to cause a slow in demand is a slow economy. And we're going to see a slow economy. I mean, nobody knows where this war is headed. If it gets worse, if NATO gets involved, the U.S. gets involved, then we're looking at wartime efforts, and then that changes the ball game completely. If for some magical reason this gets resolved and things get back to some degree of normalcy, then we're going to get back to the kind of the same supply demand issues we've been facing with, and we have to figure out how to get over those hurdles by, again, having a nice balance between supply and demand. When one is way out of whack from the other, it either causes, extreme price pressure on the low side or extreme price pressure on the high side, which is what we've been facing.
So with the mission of creating, or advocating for affordability in housing, what are some of the steps that the Indiana Builders Association are taking right now to, impact that for consumers?
This legislative term is just wrapped up, and we've been able to do some things, to thwart, again, increased house prices. Last year was a bigger year because there were some wetlands issues that came up that would have increased lot prices, new developed land prices, as high as $2,000, $3,500 per lot. That all trickles down into the cost of the new home and then trickles down to the consumer. We were able to get the mandate of residential fire sprinklers out of the building code a couple of years ago. That could have added up to $10,000 per cost of a new home. Now, I've got no problem with anybody wanting to put a residential fire sprinkler into their new house, but we don't think it should be mandated. People that want to buy an affordable house, and that word is becoming an oxymoron. and we're kind of changing that mantra to almost be attainable houses, can't afford another $10,000 for something they may never need. Right now, 7 out of 10 households cannot afford a new medium priced home. And housing affordability will remain a significant challenge in 2022. And it's at the lowest level it's been in a decade for housing affordability. Interestingly enough, though, nationwide, the Indianapolis, Anderson, Carmel, Westfield market still ranks fourth in affordability nationwide. So, we still have reasonably low land prices. We still have reasonably low labor prices. All that, trickle down into the final cost of the home. So we're blessed in that regard, but still 7 out of 10 can't afford a new medium price home. And that's something that we've got to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you talked about in there was some of the labor costs being lower in, Indiana and central Indiana. Talk about kind of the labor shortage or the, trials and tribulations as a home builder we go through all the time, looking for subcontractors and everything else.
Well, it's very local market dependent. So in the Indianapolis 9-county region, and even throw in Madison County into that, we have a decent supply of labor, and it's at a decent, good wage for them to make. But if you go up into Lake County, Porter County, some of those Northwest Indiana counties that we also build in, we pay framers, plumbers, electricians, heating and cooling guys 2 and 3 times the amount we pay them here in central Indiana and in southern Indiana too. So, the closer you get to that Chicago kind of market, which pushes affordability even higher. Now, wages may be higher in that area, that's true, but not so much that they can afford what is really another 15 or 20% increase in the house price, even over what we see in central Indiana. So, and you extrapolate that to other major markets, and you can see why central Indiana is a kind of an affordable market compared to even our neighboring counties up north.
Absolutely. I guess I never even thought about it from a location standpoint, but I guess that's the first 3 rules of real estate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Location, location, location. So, I know you're here to represent the IBA today, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about Paul and how Hallmark Homes, as somebody who's from Pendleton, Indiana. I know Hallmark's a huge home builder based out of Anderson, Indiana. I'd like to hear a little bit about, I know you went to Ball State, studied communications and business. How did you end up building homes, and how did you end up now to where you are today?
Well, I owned a real estate company. I got into the real estate business at about 17, 18% interest rates in 1983. I got my real estate license. And I remember thinking at that time, boy, if we can ever get interest rates back in the single digits, we'll be living high on the hog. Well, right now, if we ever look at double digits, Katie bar the door, we're all out of business, right? So we've gotten spoiled on these low interest rates. But several years after, I owned that real estate company for about 10 years before we started Hallmark Homes. And we started Hallmark Homes because I started selling homes for another, what we call on your lot builder, representing them for homes around Pendleton, Anderson, in that market. And I partnered with a good friend of mine at the time, who was a client, Derek Wilder, who's a CPA and still is. And we kind of got our heads together and say, you know what, this company that I was selling for, they build an okay house, but they're not really offering customization. They're not really giving a good customer experience during the building process. They're not really taking care of their customers after the sale like we think they ought to be taken care of. So maybe we can figure out a way to build a better mousetrap. So we stuck an ad in the Homes and Land magazine, came up with some floor plans, hired a construction manager, and off we went. So our business model really hasn't changed over, as I said, 30 years this month since we started it. And that's building affordable custom homes on your lot throughout Indiana. We build in about 80 of Indiana's 92 counties. There's certain counties we just can't reach to. And one reason why we primarily expanded, was in the 2008 downturn. we found to keep our people employed, and we were very fortunate that we didn't have to really lay anybody off during that downturn, but we did have to spread our wings. We had to spread our geographic footprint into other counties, and really we've continued to expand on that throughout the years to where we're now building, like I said, in most of the counties in Indiana. So our business model hasn't really changed. We've changed with the times. We've tried to with plan style and design and customer features, and certainly we've improved immensely in the way we construct a house. Our quality control systems, our purchase order systems. We're as much a technology company almost these days as we are a construction company. So we've grown like everybody's had to grow with the advent of the technology, because back in then, that was the infancy of the internet when we started in 92, right? I remember Derek calling me on the phone one night and says, "Hey, I got to tell you about this new thing." And it was basically the internet. And I'm like, "What? I mean, that's got to be terribly expensive to even have that access." He's like, "No, it's free." I'm like, "What?" I couldn't believe it. I still remember that conversation. So now imagine where we'd be today without the internet. So technology has really played a big key in what we do, but we're still a consumer driven, one-on-one. Our business is never going to be replaced by robots or machines. We build the homes on site, and our customer interaction and our customer focus is still on a one-to-one basis.
What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in 30 years of doing this? Obviously, to change and adapt is one of those things that a lot of home builders maybe don't put as a priority. What would you put as number one?
Well, that's probably the best thing I can think of is change and adapt, because we've had to change the way we do business many times. We had to change it in downturn of 2008. We had to change it in 2020 and 2021. I mean, for example, for many, many years, we were able to guarantee our customers the price that they signed for at the construction agreement stage for a minimum of 6 months. As long as we could start your house in 6 months, we could guarantee that we could meet that price when we started your home, even if lumber and labor went up. Well, over the past couple of years, we haven't been able to do that because the market changes so fluidly on prices that we're now having to reevaluate the price that we've signed a customer at on a construction agreement prior to their home being appraised, prior to their loan closing, prior to us starting the house. We may have to go back in and renegotiate that deal with them, not in order for us to just, quote, make more money, but for us to still be able to build the home at a profitable level enough for us to sustain as a business. Because ultimately, we can't build houses and lose money, or we'll be out of business, right? So it's not increasing our margins. It's not doing anything but keeping us working, still getting them into the home. But in some cases, we've had to go back to the customer and adjust the price 5, 10, 15, some cases $20,000, depending on the scope of the house and how long ago it was they signed a construction agreement before we were actually ready to start the house. So that's just another way of adapting. I've talked to other builders that have called me and said, "Hey, have you raised your price on any customers yet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we've been doing that for a while, because if you don't, you're going to turn around and you're going to look at your checkbook someday or your balance sheet and say, wow, we're out of money because we've spent more than we brought in, because we were actually building homes at less than what they cost us to make." That's one thing nice about, well, many things nice about working with somebody like Derek, who's a CPA that always has his hand on the financial end of this business, because ultimately it is a business and has to be run as a business first and foremost. But serving our customers is a number one priority, but staying in business is a big one too, obviously.
Obviously, you got to stay in business. Yeah, we've got a list of 10 rules of business in our office, and rule number 1 is stay in business. There's a lot of businesses that don't get to number 2 because that's make money.
Right.
But number 3 is know your numbers, right? So I would say that, sometimes with organizations like home building, a lot of people don't have that CPA partner, and a lot of guys just don't know their numbers, especially if they're fluid and changing every day.
Well, many people jump into small businesses as an offshoot of their trade. For example, a lot of home builders got into business because maybe they were framers and they framed for other builders. And now they thought, well, I can do this. I'm going to go out and start a home building company. Well, they know the technical side of it, but they don't know the most critical side of it, and that's the business side. And I see this from many other trades, plumbers, electricians, lots of guys think starting a business is easy because I know the skill that it takes to get the job done. But that's only half the battle, right? Knowing how to do something will only get you so far. If you don't know how to manage it, you don't know how to build that business from the ground up from a financial standpoint. The cash flow that it takes to run a construction company or a home building company is tremendous. And had I done this on my own, I'd probably been bankrupt because I would have been wanting to take money out of the company because I'd have been, hey, there's money in the checking account. I think I'll take some out. But Derek's like, no, we can't take any money out because we're going to need that cash. The more houses we have going, the more cash it's going to take to keep that company cash flow positive. Because in construction, particularly cash intense, because we're always behind in cash while a home is being built, because we never get truly paid in full until it's 100% complete. So if we have 40 houses under construction and we're behind just $20,000 on each house, from a cash flow perspective, you can do the math on that pretty quick and realize that's $800,000. And if you don't have lines of credit or enough capital in your company to cash flow that, growing big will put you out of business quicker than having fewer sales.
We talk about it all the time in our office. It's a round table, right? Every good business owner needs a good banker, a good insurance agent, a good lawyer. You got to have these people and a good accountant, everybody all at your table, because if you don't have, especially, and you're always waiting on a check in construction, there's always money outstanding. So if you don't have that banker who's walking you through lines of credit, and you don't have the accountant that can show you the profit and loss statement, and you don't have the lawyer saying, hey, don't do that, right? These guys, yeah, it's a little bit of that Icarus syndrome, right? You fly a little bit too close to the sun.
It's almost impossible to do on your own to any large scale. Now, I'm not saying you can't go out and build a house or two or five or six by yourself with one or two other guys, you running your own books or your spouse or what have you. It can be done. But taking that to a much bigger level, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 houses, changes the ballgame completely. But then you do need all those people, because then you do start getting, for if you only 2% of your customers are unhappy, that means 2% of your customers might be calling an attorney. And now you need that attorney you mentioned to help you litigate or arbitrate an issue that you might have in construction or, post-construction kind of thing. You always need good financial people. You always need good tax people. You always need good insurance people. So you're absolutely right. And those key people become ever so much more important the bigger you get in your company, regardless of what company you're in. I don't care if you're a flower shop or you're a construction company. The bigger you get, the more difficult it becomes from a lot of different levels.
Absolutely. So one of the things we were talking about earlier when I introduced you was I called this the first episode, what I'm calling the blue collar blueprint. The blue collar blueprint was designed because our organization does tax accounting, insurance, and financial advisory. And the reason we fit so well into blue collar businesses is they want a one-stop shop a lot of the time, or they're especially that guy that's just now letting go of his own, that person, or to have the table all at one place makes it a little bit easier. And I think it's the education from the business side doesn't happen unless it has to happen or it's too late. So we're just trying to create a platform for people like yourself who've done it, right? And now you're the president of an organization that runs however many members across the state. I think that your advice is invaluable to a lot of people.
Well, we have about 2,600 members in Indiana, and that number is down from the 2006 level, from about 7,000, since a lot of people, consolidation took care of part of that. But A lot of people, like I said, got out of the business because of the fact that just the downturn put them out of business. But I would say one of the most important things to keep in mind when running a business is not only know what you can do, know what you can't do, know what you're not good at, and get those people around you to take care of that end of the business. I can balance my own checkbook. I can run an Excel spreadsheet. I can have my own budget, but I can't do it for a $20 million real estate, single family home builder. But Derek has a team of people like Amber and others in my office, and Philip, another CPA, my stepson, in fact, that runs the financial end of things. Don't leave that up to me because it isn't going to work well. My strength is in sales and marketing and that kind of thing. Their strength is in the financial end. So I know I can't do that. I don't want to do that. So the things you can't do and the things you don't want to do, it's critically important to find those key people within your organization that know and want to do those things.
Yeah, and I've always heard this: egos are expensive. So it's hard to let somebody else do something you think you're good at, even if you're bad at it. Even if you don't think you're good at it, it's hard to let go of control. So I believe that 1,000,000%. It's find people. Yeah.
Yeah, we lost our egos years ago in this business. We have to have confidence in ourselves and confidence in the people around us. But as far as thinking we know how to do this better than anyone else and thinking that our systems are the best and our plans are the best and our this and that are the best, that's gone out the window because there's always somebody around the corner that's better than you, that's bigger than you, that's been doing it longer than you, et cetera, just like it is with most things in life. So big egos is not something that we're big about within our company, but we do want, strong, self-confident people, working around us. But attitude, aptitude or attitude goes a long way over aptitude. So we can take somebody with a good attitude and turn them into a good construction manager, let's say, as opposed to somebody that's really good construction manager, but their attitude's terrible. They're cocky. They don't deal well with customers. They flip an attitude when problems arise. Those kind of people will be out of work within our organization much quicker than somebody that has a positive attitude, that wants to learn, that's willing to work, that works well with customers, but just needs to learn the systems and how to build a house a little better. Those people are much more apt to stay with our company a long term. And we've had people in our organization literally as long as Derek and I have been, almost 30 years. Many of our construction managers have been 15, 20 years with us. And people like Amber in the accounting departments, I don't know how long she's been with us, but it's been a long time. 15 years maybe, I don't know. It's like time flies, right? So retention is key to a successful organization, because turnover, high turnover creates more training, less productivity, et cetera. So that's the other part of the puzzle. Hire right, treat your employees promptly, correctly, pay them a decent wage, and keep them happy and get their input, and you'll have retention. Will take care of itself.
Yeah, the fourth rule of business, just to go back, it's one of the things I wrote down, is attract and keep good people, right? That goes for customers just as much as it goes for employees.
More so with employees, for sure.
Well, obviously you're doing it the right way. There's a lot of blue collar guys I talk to that say, well, I'll double my business if I could just keep somebody. I'll double my business if I could just hire the right guy. What are some of the things that you say you do different to do those things, or have done different?
In hiring?
Hiring, hiring, attracting, keeping good people.
Well, hiring is always a challenge, especially in economies where you have low unemployment, right? So whenever we're in need for a new construction manager in a high demand market where there's low unemployment, it's difficult to get people to leave maybe their current construction management position to come to work for us. So once we get them in front of us and can explain how we work, that we are not going to micromanage them to death. We're not going to have, weekly meetings with them where they have to come to some office and sit for 3 and 4 hours, and we're going to tell them they have to do this report and that report, and they have to, punch a clock. Our people don't punch clocks. The majority of the people in our office are still working from home, not because we still have a pandemic to be concerned about. It's because once we realized when they went home, their productivity actually increased. Their travel time went to nothing. So, we're not concerned about having a bunch of people coming in hovering around the water cooler anymore when they want to work at home, and they're more productive to do that. So I think, the aspect that we give them the autonomy to do their job, we give them the space to do their job, and we let them kind of, sink or swim, if you will. We'll give them all the help they need, but ultimately their success is going to be driven by how well they perform, not how much we're pounding into them, the way we want things done. So I think that's probably our some of the things that keep us successful in respect to our team.
Absolutely. I think those are, especially in the ever-changing world, right? So of your 2,600 members in IBA, how many would you say are true home builders, and how many are like subcontractors, framers, that sort of stuff?
A little over 700 are true home builders or remodelers. We have a lot of remodelers. Marcy Chong's Midwest Remodeling there in Pendleton's one of our great members, and Marcy's up and coming on the IBA ladder. She'll be president, I think, probably in about another 5 years of Indiana Builders Association. At least we have her slated for that. About 700 and some are builders and remodelers. The others are what we call associate members or affiliate members, that things like painters, like trim carpenters, like concrete laborers, or title companies, lawyers, insurance companies, vendors, suppliers. There's lots of industries that revolve around residential construction and light commercial construction. So we try and attract all those members because everybody's dues dollars helps to support the function of the NAHB, IBA, and your local association. Again, to keep housing affordable, to educate our industry, our members with new and upcoming trends, and as well as coursework for designations. And I just finished teaching 4 days of classes last week in Indianapolis for what's called aging in place. Certifications for people to specialize in how to build homes and remodel homes for people to stay in their homes longer, given the fact that most people want to stay in their homes longer. So how can we build and remodel homes more efficiently for people to maximize their livability in the home as they get older? Those kind of things. So tremendous amount of work the Builders Association does on all levels. We just had the International Builder Show in Orlando last month. Had over 60,000 people combined with a Kitchen and Bath International Show, and vendors from all over the world come and display their goods and new and upcoming products and seminars, everything from financial accounting software to drafting, computers and software, and of course all building components and everything of all kinds. So getting involved in the Builders Association is the best thing a builder or remodeler can do to enhance their business and work on their business. Even if they need help on some of the things we talked about, like accounting and finance and expertise in those areas, the Builders Association is there to help them work through those issues as well.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think there's not enough people that go and ask for help. So if people listening to this, call them blue collar business owners, call them residential remodelers, how can they join the IBA? How do they become active in the IBA? Something that I've realized in my associations is you can become a part of association, but once you get involved in association, that's when you see the true benefits.
Well, you can, the easiest way is to go to NAHB, National Association of Home Builders website, nahb.org/join. That will take you right to the sign up page. You enter your zip code, where you live, and it's going to hook you up with the closest local association to where you live, if that's where you want to have your association membership. Or if you work in, say, Indianapolis, but live in Pendleton and you want to join the Indianapolis Association, then you might put your work zip code in there. But then just fill out the form. You pay by credit card, for your first year of dues, and then off you go. You'll get a welcoming kit. But you're not automatically just boom, once you're signed up, now you're super active. You have to make a concerted effort to get active in your association. And that usually starts on the local level. Most local associations have monthly meetings. I know we do in Madison County, where we meet, we have lunch, we have a speaker come in, we'll network with our vendors and suppliers, and we then have opportunities and discuss opportunities on how to get involved at the state level as far as committees, and then then the sky's the limit. Then you can get into the leadership role like I did by getting into what we call the chairs, your secretary, then your treasurer, then your vice president, and your president. So you work your way into the leadership role. But if that's not for everybody, that's fine. But getting involved in the committees and the functions, we have golf outings, we're having a great meeting coming up in June in French Lick. Senator Braun's going to speak. We're combining it with our golf outing at the French Lick Golf Course. We're inviting everybody to come down there and partake in that for 2 days of meetings and networking and fellowship and fun, skeet shooting and golf and of course the casino. So the Builders Association affords lots of opportunities to get plugged in to whatever extent you want to get plugged in. Nobody's going to hound you to come to meetings every week. Nobody's going to hound you to do anything other than get involved to the extent and degree that you want to get involved.
Well, absolutely. I think that's great. So for everybody listening, go ahead and look up NAHB.org. Go ahead and join. I know that I just joined our local Madison County Chamber or Association. I'm super excited to not only get to know more builders in our association, but learn more about helping business owners, and then also our end consumer find affordable housing here in Madison County. So, Paul, I appreciate your time.
No problem.
Have a great day. Hey guys, thank you again so much for your love and support of the Performance Group podcast. For more information on the podcast, the Performance Group, or even our guests, feel free to reach out directly via our website, performancegroupindiana.com, or feel free to email me directly, which is Sean@performancegroupindiana.com. We'll see you guys next week.